I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. Trump and Clinton, Clinton and Trump. Those are two names I'm sure you've heard a lot of in these past few months, and I'm almost sorry that I have to mention them here on the Rough Draft Diaries, mainly because we're an arts and culture series, a safe haven from the world of politics. But this election year has been very strange, and since the time to enter that voting booth is about a month away, I thought maybe we could cover this topic in some way, shape, or form. So this morning on the Rough Draft Diaries, we're going to take a quick break from our line of connections to talk to someone who's been involved in politics since the 1960s.
Okay, I'm Mark Russell, and I'm a piano-playing political satirist, which is a great job because it's mostly indoors and no heavy lifting.
Mark is best known for his PBS specials that aired between the years 1975 and 2004. It's kind of a mix of stand-up comedy and musical parodies. He would take on any politician, of course, while playing his American flag-themed piano.
Mercifully, this election is over with. How do you feel about that? You know, I knew that I had to have a break from this thing. I knew the campaign was really getting to me, and maybe this has happened to you, when a couple of days ago, it just seemed that Ross Perot was starting to make sense.
That was the 1996 presidential election, where Ross Perot was running with the Reform Party against Democratic Bill Clinton and Republican Bob Dole. But Mark had been covering politics long before the year 1996. And before politics, there was just the piano.
I took piano lessons. I started when I was 7, and I'm to this day, I'm not very good at it. But when I was a kid, I wanted to be a jazz and piano player. And then I moved to Washington with my parents and got caught up in the whole political thing. I'm a political junkie. I have Potomac fever. I love it. I have respect for it. But in the American tradition, just to ridicule it from time to time.
Now, Mark's love of music and his love of politics began as two separate interests. He didn't think to combine the two until he started one of his first jobs. He played the piano for entertainment in local bars in Washington, D.C.
I was playing piano around town in Washington, and real dives, I must say. But I got a job that lasted longer than the others, and it was a political bar on Capitol Hill. Smoke-filled room at the time, wheeling and dealing going on. You could walk from one end of the room to the other without leaving the scene of a crime.
With a room full of congressmen, their staffers, lobbyists, Mark decided to write songs about the people and the audience so they at least could relate to them. And this is the year 1960, when a new presidential campaign had just begun.
The two big Democrats who wanted to be president were John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was the favorite. He was the majority leader of the Senate. Jack Kennedy was his lesser presence. And then Kennedy started to rise, and he got a lot of money from his father. That inspired a parody of an old spiritual, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. This is embarrassing to even tell you about it. And so this was Swing Low, Jack Kennedy, your daddy's going to carry you home. And that got a big response.
And some of those responses weren't always positive.
The combination of political jokes and alcohol can be a lethal concoction. Some of them would come up to the piano and try and shout me down, and so that's why I kind of shout from the stage more than necessary, because that came from when I was starting out, having to outshout the various inebriated customers.
Mark slowly but surely started to gain a new audience. In 1975, PBS aired his stand-up as a political television special. And the rest, as they say, is history. He made multiple appearances on PBS, was portrayed in an episode of Saturday Night Live, was also parodied in an episode of The Simpsons, and is still touring and performing today. So if you're keeping track of all the presidents Mark's comedy has covered, that's Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, and Obama. So now I'm curious to see, with all the history, with all the knowledge of past presidential campaigns, what does Mark think of Clinton versus Trump?
The others pale in comparison. This is beyond the pale. I have never seen anything as dirty, bloody. Now, yes, I'm loving it because that's my professional thing. I'm having a wonderful time, but still, it's horrendous, and a lot of it is a disgrace. And I think the rest of the world is wondering what the heck is going on in the United States.
I asked Mark if he knew who he was voting for in this election, and if he could advise any other voters who remain undecided. He responded in his typical dry-witted manner.
My reliable sources, which are 2 bartenders in Toledo, tell me that America's best days are ahead of us if neither candidate wins.
I think that's all the help we're going to get. I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.